my favorite part of Election Day when I went to the Board of Elections in Franklin County and demanded more machines with my very nice jacket on, saying, Election Protection Attorney. And I demanded to see Matt Schroeder, and I was told, well, Matt and Ken Blackwell are meeting with President Bush. And I think there's nothing that says fair election more than when the two objective umpires of the system are busy plotting strategy with the president who unexpectedly flew in. Now, Kevin Phillips is still out there. He's still alive, and he's writing books. And one of the books he wrote before the 2004 election was American Dynasty. And while it didn't get much play, there's two things in those books I found quite fascinating. Number one, he said the Bush family is 4 generations of war profiteers. And then he had the audacity to go back to Samuel Bush of Buckeye Steel Castings in Ohio and show how he had gotten on the armaments board and given his company unbid contracts in World War I. And then he showed how Prescott Bush laundered money, and this is a Republican, through the Union Banking Corp. And then he, of course, showed how Zapata Oil, and there's a great story there, right? Just think, when you have a small oil company and you managed to outbid Gulf Oil to drill the first oil wells in the Persian Gulf for Kuwait. Talk about a success story. And then there's, of course, Spectrum 7, run by a business genius, the current president. And think about this. He was able to get Khalid bin Mahfouz, the money
this
man.
Is quite scary. Yesterday I was on
the
a
Bin Laden family,
Ohio public radio show,
and right before I was on, the feed, the chair of the Cuyahoga County Republican Party is on there, and he says the following words.
The Saudis need
well, we're not really
than
worried about the election this year. Ken Blackwell's in good shape. Apparently,
he's
there's not
exactly
much oil in Saudi
where George
Arabia.
Bush was
at this time in 2004, 10 to 12 points down, or as we like to call it in Ohio, stealing distance. I think, I think with the nine, it's, remember our phrases in Ohio, it's never over till the cyber vote comes in. The 9 to 13% margin there in the last polls for Max Cleland, so they proved that they could steal in an individual race within that range. So when they begin to talk like this, they begin to look at their data mining and analysis. But I thought it was odd when I was sitting there and the Republican Party organizer came in to get a check from the Board of Elections for the Republican Party county fundraiser, the golf scramble that they had going on. And the check went over the county, and I'm sitting there. Of course, I was allowed there because my name was mentioned in Rolling Stone, and the director seemed to be impressed by that. So as part of that, I'm looking at it, and I'm wondering what's going on. And I talked to Pam Calendine and said, well, don't you have a problem with that? And she says, no, my stepfather is the guy organizing it, Bob Johnson. He's the leading Republican in town. And I said, well, what kind of Democrat are you? And she said, quote, not very partisan. Then it turned out she was very truthful. She had only voted in one Democratic Party, and 2 days later, she had been nominated to be the deputy director of the Miami County Board of Elections. They had gotten rid of Diane Miley, thank God. She complained that 10 friends of the director who were there on election night bringing ballots out, they forgot to put them in the precinct, that it was wrong to have 10 Republican runners on election night. But it helps if you want to get a 98.55% voter turnout in Concord Southwest. So by having those ballots available, it helps that way. So all over Ohio, Michael Vu, does anyone on the planet not know that Michael Vu fears Bob Bennett tied directly to the White House. And Vicki Lovegren and others, right, have revealed when you purge 24.93% of all the voters between 2000 and 2004 in Cleveland, which voted 83% for Kerry, and then you go to all-white Miami County, 2% black Miami County, and they don't purge anybody. Not only do they not purge, but they merge voters in from other counties because they're very friendly. That is clearly apartheid and racial oppression. So these are the types of things that we need to document on Election Day. As we think about this, and I love it whenever we're called conspiracy theorists, because my friends who are coincidence theorists out there, it's like, look, just all the votes, in Mahoney County, they just all hopped from Kerry to Bush. It's a coincidence. And Franklin County, the Franklin County fade, they just faded on Kerry. That's just, statistics, sort of. And as Richard Hayes Phillips and Stuart Wright found, the last 359 votes there in one Delaware County precinct all went for Bush. But you call up the New York Times, and they go, well, maybe a bus showed up. I go, look, this isn't Ranch Armageddon. I'm a former Oregon. They don't all live in a big compound. It isn't David Koresh. Nowhere in the state of Ohio is there a big, large bus that holds 359 people that all live on a big ranch. It may be in Texas, but not Ohio. And for those who are out there, they'll say, well, look, okay, they would never steal elections. It's like, sure, we've never practiced torture, and they've gone to publicly torturing. Well, I'm sorry, they redefined it, right? It's not torture unless a major body organ fails. So my apologies to the Attorney General. So we since Nuremberg, we've never attacked other countries that weren't a direct threat to us. Well, they've done that. They've tortured. And we don't spy on people. We have unalienable rights and the Fourth Amendment. And we have that Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. But let's see. They're torturing publicly. They're spying without warrants. They're violating the principles of Nuremberg, for which we hung the Nazi generals, an American principle that says you cannot conspire, plan, and wage illegal war. But they wouldn't dare think of tampering with the vote. And thank God it's under the control of partisan private corporations that support them, that use secret proprietary software. All is well. It's not well. It's up to us to reclaim our heritage. This is the greatest democracy in the world. And we plan not only to save the ballots, which will show the theft of the last election, but to seize these polls and ensure that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish. That is our goal on Election Day. We've got a lot of work to do, and I'm glad to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Boy, Mark, you have a hard act to follow. Hope you're really good tonight. I think you can do it, guys. I don't know. Our next guest is Marcus Miller. I actually heard of him the first time when I went to some media reform conferences, which is our other major, huge problem as our media. And actually, Mark is going to talk a lot about the media and elections tomorrow night. Also, Bob Kohler is going to talk about the media and elections. But Mark is here, and hopefully you're not too tired. It is late, and we're running late, but I think he'll keep you awake. Mark Miller, the author of many books, Fooled Again, How the Right Stole the 2004 Election and How They'll Do It Again Unless We Stop Them. And we can't stop them. Thank you. Marcus Miller.
The Republican and the Democrat are both in full agreement that Kerry blew it. That's why he lost. Right? Well, no, he didn't lose. See? He won, okay? Not only did he win, but there's copious evidence that it wasn't close, right? I mean, this is one place where I can say that, right? I must have been. If you get enough people out on Election Day, you will somehow wash the fraud away. You know, it'll be a tsunami. It's unlikely the Democrats are going to get 80% of the vote, right? But the presumption there is that this kind of cheating can somehow be overwhelmed by a high turnout, and that's not going to happen. They're going to steal it again in a month. They're in excellent shape to do it. We can make all the gestures we want. We can maybe get some improvements effected by Election Day. I mean, the time is running out. The fact is that they're in a far stronger position to steal the race this time than they were in 2004. There are DRE machines in many more places now. We have grotesque laws on the books, say, for example, in Ohio, HB 3, which, because of which Ohio slipped below the Mason-Dixon line. That's just in Ohio. The Democrats here won't talk about election fraud because they're afraid it will make them seem peculiar or paranoid or bitter or something like that. The fact of the matter is that we really have one job, we in this movement have one job, okay? Our job is to make ourselves irrelevant. The Democrats here won't talk about election fraud because they're afraid it will make them seem peculiar or paranoid or bitter or something like that. The fact of the matter is that we really have one job, we in this movement have one job, okay? Our job is to make ourselves irrelevant by having this movement become a national movement, a mass movement. We can't effect the kind of change we need by ourselves. We can do a great deal. I think we have done a great deal. But this movement has to be the people's movement, because as long as it's the work of a network of well-meaning people who are, as far as the establishment is concerned, and therefore many Americans, nuts. We're not going to get accomplished what we have to get accomplished. The people have to know what we're up against. They have to know what happened in 2004 and in 2002. They have to know what has been in the works since 2004, and they have to know what is going to happen on Election Day. Now, as I say, it will go one of two ways. Either they will steal it outright, as they did in 2004, or they will not succeed in stealing it outright. They may lose the House by, say, 3 seats, in which case they will mount an enormous propaganda drive after Election Day and sort of slime their way to victory, as they did in 2000. The fact is that the momentum is all on the side of the, what should I call them? Should we call them fascists? Well, they're in a much stronger position to steal it. The problem is not stealing it. The problem is coming up with a rationale that will fly. Okay? It's very important we understand that this is why the White House is making such a big deal about terrorism. A lot of people were saying, editorialists and others, when Bush gave that, preposterous speech on the 9/11 anniversary, saying, well, no, there's no evidence that Saddam was behind 9/11, but Saddam Hussein was behind 9/11. It wasn't true. Of course, we know it wasn't true. It was true. I never said it was true. It is true. And that's why we're at war in Iraq, and that's why if we don't fight them there, they'll be in Hoboken. That's Saddam and the terrorists, and they're all Arabs and whatever. And some guy had the temerity to come up to him and say that he really didn't like Bush's policies, and Bush said, "Well, who cares what you think?" That's their motto. That should be their campaign slogan. And who cares what you think? They don't care. They don't care what the world thinks. They live in a faith-based universe. We are an empire now. We create our own reality. It was probably Rove who said that to Ron Suskind of Esquire magazine. So, if they don't care about popular opinion, they don't care about reason, they don't care about the vote, they don't care. So they're not doing this to get people to vote for them. They're doing this so they'll have a handy rationale for why people, surprisingly enough, reelected them anyway. You see? That's what's going on. And I'm afraid that it is quite possible, indeed likely, that they will strengthen their hand in this regard by mounting some action against Iran. Oh, yeah, we lost. Oh, yeah, we lost. This is denial, okay? And it is precisely because this is so frightening. It is precisely because what we're up against is so dire that people don't want to wrap their minds around it, particularly career politicians. If you're a Democrat, you're in the Beltway, you live that life, you breathe that air, my good friend on the other side of the aisle, you fraternize, you send your kid to private school, you have a mortgage or 3, You are not built to go to the barricades. You follow me? You are built to make deals. You are built to take bribes, You're built to raise money. You're built to divide the spoils. And I think a lot of Democrats have deluded themselves into thinking that it's still like that. They don't understand that they're dealing with another party that regards them as scum at best. That's denial. And it is exactly what happened in Germany in the 30s. Exactly. To deny that the Bush Republicans have stolen their way to power is about as acceptable as denial of the Holocaust. Okay? Now, let me tell you why. I mean, some people think, oh, come on now. Holocaust is a holy thing. Not the same. Actually, I beg to differ, and I'll tell you why. You want to see what's at stake here. Go to the Election Incident Reporting System, EIRS, that big archive of complaints people made on Election Day 2004. It's an indispensable resource, okay? You go back, you check out EIRS, type in New Orleans, okay? You take a look at the hundreds of complaints people made from that city on Election Day 2004, and you can see that they were already sentenced to what they used to call civil death in the Middle Ages. Civil death means that all the rights of a citizen are withdrawn from you. The state will not protect you. The people of New Orleans were already disenfranchised through just the kinds of tricks and tactics we've always been talking about. They were really systematically disenfranchised. They were wiped out as citizens. And I'm telling you that is simply a half a step away from genocide. Okay? Because what you do before you actually extinguish people's lives is you erase them as citizens. You erase them as respectable people. That's what happened to the people of New Orleans, who were allowed to perish knowingly in an act of depraved indifference. Option 1, outright theft, a la 2004. Option 2, and this comes from a GOP insider who told this off the record to Tom Hartman. You know his show, Tom Hartman? great guy. If they do lose the House, say by 3 votes, they're going to start screaming bloody murder about guess what? Right, election fraud, voter fraud, whatever you want to call it. But they're going to say, we were robbed by the Democrats. This is going to be the ultimate swift boat maneuver, right? The perpetrators will scream loud and long that they are the victims of the crimes they have been committing against those who they say have committed them. Meanwhile, those who are the victims of the crime will probably not say anything. This is, the most perverse situation imaginable. So they're preparing to mount a huge propaganda drive in the event that they should lose, and they will concentrate, say, on the 3 or 4, however many they need, closest races, and they'll go to town. And they'll start screaming and yelling about election fraud. Since the Democrats have refused to make an issue out of this, as Bob says, that leaves the field to the Republicans. And it is a venerable propaganda principle, as Dr. Goebbels said, he who speaks the first word to the world is always right. So all of a sudden people are hearing about election fraud, and it's Republicans who are talking about it. Now, what nobody seems to grasp, or what people don't want to grasp, but what the establishment doesn't want to grasp, is that this isn't a partisan issue. This is not about party. There was a front-page piece in the Times last week about all these new laws that are disenfranchising voters, but that's not how it was spun. The article was, there is a partisan brawl over these strict new regulations. The Republicans think that they're a good idea and the Democrats don't like them. That's not it. That's not it. The Democrats don't dislike them enough, first of all. All right? Second of all, it's an issue, it's a civic issue, not a partisan issue. It's a civic issue, not a technical issue. See? What I'm saying to you, I guess, is that if we concentrate only on the machines and treat this as a purely technical problem, it could end up backfiring on us very badly, because they have the brazenness to seize that issue